KPG recently funded a handful of companies. Why don't you tell us a little bit about those?
Sure. The first one was a follow-on investment for Cake Financial, which is a social network around personal investing. The second was National Payment Card, which is a debit payment processor. The third was Lexy, which is audio content on demand on any device. And the fourth is a company that was originally called Egeos, is now called Wowd. It's a search company, but it's still in stealth mode, so I really can't talk about what their plans are yet.
Is there something that they all share in common?
They're highly disruptive and highly capital efficient technologies. That's what we look for at KPG. If you're going to be a seed stage investor, you have to find disruptive technologies at the earliest possible moment.
Your firm was founded in 2006, so it's
That's correct.
Still pretty young.
Yes.
Have you had exits?
Yes, we've had a few exits. Ribbit, which was a telephone company that was sold to British Telecom, exited last year, and Sphere, which was a widget company sold to AOL last year. So we've had 2 exits out of the first fund already. We're very excited about where we are. And our second fund closed the 3rd week of October of last year, so we were super excited to get that done.
Interesting
time
to have been raising or I guess closing. Better timing.
You know, absolutely, because this is a perfect time to invest. It's interesting. I'm older, so I've been through a few recessions, right? And you can make a lot of hay during recessions. Look at it from a company standpoint. They can do a lot during a recession. They can pick up a lot of customers. Their competition might be weak. Their competition might be unfocused. And what we try to do with our companies is keep them highly focused and very, very much prepared to take advantage of competitive situations. So as a result, we think this is a great time to be investing in companies. And if you're an entrepreneur, it's a great time to start a company.
Let's talk for a minute about Silicon Valley and what its advantages are and how it compares to other startup centers like New York. I know you lived in New York for 25 years.
Right.
You've been out in the Valley
for a few years now, yeah.
So what's the difference?
You know, there's not a better, worse situation. It really is a difference. The rate of technology advancement in Silicon Valley is really incredible. And in New York, you have a larger business community. So there are huge differences between the two. I do think the common thread that ties the two markets together is an incredible amount of innovation and ready access to capital, either through folks like us or larger firms.
In Silicon Valley, you can't walk into a coffee shop or a bar without running into people in the tech industry.
That's correct.
How does that feel? I mean, do you like that, or?
Well, I find it really interesting, but I love online technologies to begin with. Or else, you wouldn't be doing something like this for a living. It's been interesting to observe during this period that there's no let-up in terms of innovation. It's harder to get things funded for sure, but that doesn't stop people. You know, there's a company created every 30 seconds out there. I don't know if that's obviously not a literal number, but from an emphatic standpoint, there's always something going on.
Some people talk about Silicon Valley as perhaps living too close to the technology and too much in a world where everybody is part of that world.
Right.
Whereas places like New York, maybe there's more of a reality check. What do you think?
Well, I think it's important when you're starting a company to understand how you can understand where your product really fits. So if all you ever do is talk to people that are exactly like you probably miss a perspective that you really need. So we're always telling our companies, make sure you're talking to the customers, especially during times like this. People are really open about what their problems are, and your customers will really tell you what they need. So I think there is a chance to be insular if you're not careful. But if you're an entrepreneur and you're attacking a particular market and you come from that market, you probably know the customer set too. And as a result of that, there's an awful lot of opportunity to get reality checks and sanity checks on how you're proceeding. I haven't found San Francisco or Silicon Valley to be really constricting in any way, shape, or form. It's actually very broad thinking, just like New York City is.